and the universe's mystery, where everything is upside down. Imagine if we had to live in a world like this, a place where everything we consider normal becomes abnormal, and everything considered abnormal becomes normal. A world where rivers flow upwards, away from the sea. A world where trees grow downward, where talking means listening and listening means talking. A world where lying leads to success and where telling the truth is the best. I'll ruin you. A world where stealing positions you politically and where being honest makes you lose elections. A world where sexuality isn't defined, not by gender, but by emotional perceptions of people. Imagine a world where children are in charge and the adults must obey rules set by the younger and less experienced. A world where teachers go to school to do what the students, underage students, tell them to do. And underage students do not need to ask their parents for permission to change their sex. Imagine a world where the ballots for the presidential elections are designed electronically to vote for a candidate, but they choose someone else over you. Imagine a world where supporting terrorists is allowed and where protesting against terrorists and terrorism is forbidden. My friends, this world and this planet are not far from us. Quite the opposite. It is our world. It is our planet. We live in an upside-down world. You have to learn to live in this world. The prophet Isaiah spoke to us of this world in chapter 5 of his prophecy, saying, Woe to those who call evil good, and to the good they say evil. You can read all that text later at Isaiah chapter 5. Prophet uses this phrase to denounce the distortions in the moral and ethical values of society and criticizes those who intentionally confuse what is fair with what is unfair, redefining good and evil to suit their own interest, to their own desires. The prophet Isaiah is showing us an upside-down world, a world where values are inverted, a world turned upside down. My friends, this upside-down world is not a fantasy. This is no fairy tale. This is a tangible reality in our own generation. Our world is upside down. Any behavior that sets a generation back, we would give as normal. Today, it seems completely abnormal. Our world is upside down because we see how our principles constantly clash with a generation where social, sexual, and economic roles are reversed. Living in an upside-down world becomes dangerous. It becomes dangerous because if the good we do, they see as bad. Can they persecute you, mistreat, humiliate, even eliminate for doing good, for speaking the truth, to act righteously? Think of the upside-down world of Nazi Germany in Europe. The third king, under the National Socialist Party regime, led by the evil Adolf Hitler from 1933 to 1945, represented an upside-down world. He created an upside-down Europe, especially due to the extreme distortion of ethical and moral values, and the implementation of policies and practices that subverted fundamental humanitarian principles. If you want to assess how upside down the country you're living in is becoming, pay attention to the upside down world, which the Nazis created in Germany. The Nazi regime was a master at using propaganda to manipulate public opinion, rewriting history, spreading an ideology that promoted racial hatred, ultranationalism. In an upside-down world, you'll see how controlling the media is always a priority. Censoring any information that contradicted the interests or narrative of the Nazi Party. In an upside-down world, personality cults will trump people's interests. Adolf Hitler, the evil one, was the subject of an intense cult of personality. His image, his messages were everywhere. He was presented as the savior of Germany, an almost messianic leader whose authority could not be questioned. An upside-down world is marked by the brutal suppression of all forms of political opposition or criticism against the ruling elite. And that included the elimination of opposition political parties, the repression of labor movements, detention, torture, and the murder of political opponents. Anyone who was a threat to the stability of the regime. And if you want to know if your country is turning upside down, look at how it treats the ethnic minorities living in that country. If you want to know, one of the most harmful traits of the third king was the systematic persecution of ethnic, religious, and social groups that were considered inferior or undesirable according to Nazi ideology. And that included the genocide of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust just for being Jewish. If you want to know if your world is turning upside down, look at how the youth is being manipulated. The Nazi regime placed great emphasis on shaping German youth. German, through organizations like the famous Hitler Youth, where the ideological principles of Nazism were instilled from a very early age, preparing them to be loyal followers and future defenders of the regime. If Nazi Germany seems distant to you, let's think about America in the 20th and 21st centuries. Look at the case of Cuba under a one-party regime that does not allow political plurality and has remained in power since 1959. The notion of an upside-down world is a sad reality that Cubans on the island continue to live to this day. Social, political, and ethical distortion, similar to what we observed in Nazi Germany. Cuba has maintained strict control over the media. The press, television, radio, all media controlled by the state. The information available to the public is highly regulated and censored to ensure it aligns with the ideology of the single ruling party. Freedom of expression is severely limited. Critic of the government, independent journalists, political dissidents, they face harassment, arbitrary detentions, inhuman forms of repression. Think, for example, of the dangerousness law that operates in Cuba. This law allows the government to detain people for pre-criminal danger. Can you imagine what that means? Allowing, essentially, to imprison someone for acts the government believes, suspected to be committed in 1 or 2 years ahead by any Cuban citizen. If you want to see a world turned upside down, look at the Middle East. Look at how nations treat the only democracy in the Middle East. And how do they treat the dictatorial regimes around them? Do they go into a math class for first graders, second graders, third graders? In a school controlled by Never at Home, how do they teach children to count at home? In schools among Palestinians in Gaza, they never teach children to subtract like this. If there are 5 Jews and we kill 3, how many Jews are still left to kill? That's how they do it. My friends, terrorism anywhere is a threat to peace everywhere. If we let terrorism progress in one place, it will only be a matter of time before it flourishes everywhere. And if this alarms and disgusts you, imagine what it will be like the day a global agenda imposes on us a completely ruined world. Reverse. This will be the world of the false prophet. Will that be the world of the Antichrist? Will that be the world of the global government? What will the world be like under the rule of the Antichrist? What will that world be like? Totally upside down. It will be a setting for one person, a small group of people. Gets absolute control of all the nations of the world. A world where nations will have to surrender their sovereignty, yield it to a group of technocrats who supposedly are the only ones who will know how to manage the world. A world where energy reserves, for example, and the natural resources of each country, they will have to be handed over to technocrats who supposedly are the only ones who will know how to manage the world. The world where everything is defined. Currently, like the opposite, it will have to be handed over to an elite of technocrats who are supposedly the only ones who will know how we should live our lives. An upside down world with an elite ruling everyone at their whim, but with the appearance of democracy. How could they achieve that? What we should to expect them to do to achieve it, and push us all towards that upside down world, controlled by a global elite. Rabbi Saul teach here in the real code. It's in the answer. Rabbi Saul teaches that a wicked one will come, that an evil one will come, who will have to remove something in order to manifest. The text is found in 2 Caesar Licenses, chapter 2, verses 8 to 12, which I will read to you because of its importance. Then this evil one will manifest, whom the Lord will kill with the spirit of his mouth, and will destroy with the brightness of his coming. The coming of this evil one, which is the work of Satan, will be accompanied by great power of signs and deceptive wonders, and with all falsehood and wickedness for those who are lost, for not having wanted to receive the love of the truth to be saved. Because of this, God sends them a deluding influence, so that they believe the lie, and all those who are far from believing the truth are condemned. They had a blast. Injustice. Notice here it talks about a wicked person. And it's interesting that the Greek term translated as wicked, he identifies himself as anomos. Anomos is a combination of a and nomos. In the Greek language, a as a prefix is always a negative departure, indicating absence or negation. For instance, atheists, which means without God, who do not have God in their lives. Amoral means without morality. And in the same way, atom means original. From atoms, which means no parts, without parts. The same thing happens with anomos in our 2 Thessalonians text. So, nomos, law. Therefore, anomos translate literally as without law, illegal. Someone who respects neither God's law nor man's law. What is it that I'm trying to tell you? What I'm trying to tell you is that in this upside down world, we will see someone rise as anomos, one who will not respect God's law, one who will not respect man's law. A world where the Bible, where the Torah, God's law, will be declared institutional. And whoever has it and whoever teaches about it will face persecution, even elimination, of social elimination. A world where the democratic constitutions of our nations will be changed and replaced by ones that serve the interests of the anti-Messiah. That will be the world that is being created by the wicked one, the false Messiah, supported by the false prophet, backed by the red dragon. The upside down world of the anti-Messiah, of the false prophet, of the apocalyptic dragon. He will try to destroy the sovereignty of our nations based on order and law, to create a world without God's law, without God's law, without the law of our democratic nations, in order to push us towards a global dictatorship. That's what's behind this globalist agenda. That's the spiritual force we are all experiencing. And this is the generation we have to live in. This is the generation we've been given to live in, friends. And this, of course, it has very profound implications for us. Because if this is the generation that we had to live through, then it means that you are God's choice to live in this time, and therefore within you. So there are divine resources that will allow you to live successfully in this upside down world. Could God have made us live in the time of Abraham, or in the time of Moses, or in the time of the prophets? But He preserved us for this time. Imagine God for a moment sitting on His throne of glory, choosing the souls to bring into the world in each generation, so that we could be His instruments of redemption in this generation. When God saw Abraham's generation, He said, no, the soul is not suitable for this generation. When He saw the generation of prophets, He said, no, this soul is not suitable for this generation. Especially when He saw the generation of the suffering, of the lawless, of the wicked, of the unrighteous one who will seek to destroy the law of God and man and create a global dictatorship. Then said, this soul, it's the right one for living in this time. That soul will be capable of being an instrument of redemption in an upside down world. My friends, it's you from the group chosen by God to live in this upside down world. As it is written in our books, my embryo, your eyes saw, your eyes saw my embryo. And in your book were all the things that were later formed without missing anything. Just one of them. Think about this. God saw your embryo, and He moved His sovereign powers to ensure that you and I were born in this generation of a rebellious world. Therefore, you and I are Hashem's response to this generation. Being aware of this will make the biggest difference in your life. Being aware of this is what will give your own identity and love, internal resource, the extraordinary role to live in a wonderfully impactful way in times. Guys like this, understand your role, let you know your responsibilities, And how does your work contribute to the overall success of the vision of redemption entrusted to us? And when you become aware about your identity and your place, this is what will lead you to align your efforts with redemption goals. Therefore, maximize your effectiveness. When you know who you are, why do you live in this time, and what is your role in this vision of redemption? This will increase your motivation and commitment. When you become aware of the choice of redemption, you'll be able to adapt better to the changes already happening in the world, and thus be more effective in your mission in the world. My friends, in the book of, it tells how the Jewish people suddenly face a serious threat of mass extermination. Mordecai, her cousin and foster father, asked Esther, the new queen, to intervene. And at the beginning, at the start, there is doubt. Then his adoptive father sends him that extraordinary message. Salvation will come from somewhere for the Jews. But maybe for this time, God has placed you in the kingdom. That was a powerful call to recognize purpose and opportunity amid difficult circumstances. May God have chosen you to live in this time. In this world is the other way around. It means that every challenge we face, it will be an opportunity to grow, to influence, to overcome barriers that seemed insurmountable to us. You are living in a pivotal moment for the world. And God has placed you here to be an instrument of light, hope, and change where you live. You are part of God's emerging leadership for the preservation of our values, principles, faith, and message of redemption. And this is the moment to internalize your identity, your mission, what God expects from you. I invite you to internalize this thought within yourself, that in these decisive hours, in these moments, these crucial minutes that the world is living, you have been chosen by heaven to be part of those who choose the light, the truth, and the justice of God's kingdom. Peace, my friends, requires courage, and justice, persistence. Today is the day when your awareness of redemption can make a difference. Never forget this. Every step towards redemption is a step towards true peace. Don't wait for others to do it. Start doing it yourself. Start taking your place beside redemption, alongside the proclamation of the kingdom of God and His justice. Don't wait for the leaders to grant you peace. It is a gift we must give ourselves and share with bravery every day. This is the most important message I can give you in an upside-down world. Blessed are the people who understand this. Happy is the people that the Eternal has chosen to live in humanity's most critical hour, to sow the hope of a better world. A world where everyone can live under their own vine and fig tree, in peace and without fear. Such are the people who decide to live in an upside-down world, to lay the foundations for a fair world based on the eternal principles of truth, redemption, and the hope of the revelation of Messiah, Ben David. Happy the people who have been deemed worthy to live in this time, to sow the seeds of a new world among men, with peace and justice for all. There is no nobler work, no better reward. The sky counts on you, God counts on you, and God will do it with you. And if you think this class should be heard by many, do your part right now. Begin your mission right now, making others listen to this message. Click where it says share, and share the link for this class with your friends and family, with your contact list, so that many more can understand the seriousness of the times we are living in. And get ready to take on the challenge too, their role in redemption. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, do it right now and hit the bell, so we can notify you every time one of my classes starts on this channel. Together we can do it. Being those who are separated is impossible. Become an instrument of redemption right now. Become right now expecting good news and peace for the world. Shalom, friends. Shalom.